boys and girls, today I'm going to show you how to create your spider web using some different materials. This one I'm going to show you using a paper towel, so if you're at home and you don't have the items here from the art room, then you can create some of these projects with things that you have at home. So this is going to be one of the videos that I show you using the paper towels, but then I'm also going to do a couple of videos showing you different ways of doing this art project. So we talked about radial lines, and you're going to be creating your web using radial lines or symmetry to make your spider web. So we are going to have to use a few items here. I have a plain white paper towel. You see there's designs, but there's no pictures on it. It's also a full-size sheet that I got the roll at HEB with the plain white sheets. I also have a piece of paper. I have a Sharpie, a ruler if you need one, and a piece of wax paper. So I am using wax paper, and you'll see why in a little bit. You want to make sure that you do have some of this so that your artwork doesn't stick, and a pencil. So let's get started. So if you're at home, boys and girls, this might not be as important as if you're in the classroom. I always want to make sure I put my name on my artwork, but I never want to put my name in the middle of my artwork or where it's in my artwork. So I'm actually going to flip it over, but I don't want to write my name or anything on the paper towel so that it goes through it. So you can see I just took a piece of masking tape and I put it on the back and I wrote my name. If you're at home, if it's just you don't have to worry about this, but if you have siblings, you might want to if y'all are all doing the project. So I have my name on my paper and I'm ready to get started, but I'm actually going to put this aside because I'm going to start first with this extra paper that I told you to grab. So I'm going to get started. I recommend that you use a pencil. Ms. Shop is just going to go ahead and use the Sharpie. You will eventually have to trace over your lines with the Sharpie, but I'm going to tell you to use a pencil first and see if it works, and then you can use the Sharpie because you're going to need to be able to see the lines through the paper towel. So remember, in radial symmetry, we start off with a center point, and I don't need to make a really big dot or center point, but I am going to put one on my paper. Now you are going to use the ruler and you're going to make lines that come out evenly as best as possible with your ruler all the way to the edge of your paper. And you can see here I go from the center and I come out. Kind of think of like a sun. When you make your sun, generally in your artwork, you tend to make radiating lines. So I'm going to go ahead and use this ruler to create my radiating lines from there. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start by just doing like a 4 square, but then I'm going to start coming in and doing lines in between. And it doesn't have to be perfect, boys and girls. You're just kind of getting the idea of creating those symmetry lines. See, I can see this one is a lot bigger and different in size. So I have enough lines there. I might add 1 more or 2 more lines in here to kind of make those pieces smaller since they look a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and create 2 more lines. You don't want to do too many or you're going to be having your glue when you do this next step in a little bit coming together. So you can see I have my radial symmetry, my center point, and all my lines coming out. Now, it doesn't look too much like a web right now because I still have to add the lines that go in between. So again, we are using one of our elements of art, line, to create our lines that go in between our web lines here. We're going to actually use I would say a frowny face line, because we're going to actually go from one line to the other line and we're going to go upside down. See how that line looks like a frowny face? So you're just making one curve right there going from one line to the other. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to turn my paper and I'm going to make another frowny face right even connecting with that one. And I'm going to keep turning my paper and I'm going to go around my entire web making a circle with those frowny face lines. So see, they're coming away from my point right here. So I have it upside down, frowny face, okay? Curved line. And you're gonna see how I'm always touching that other line. So again, I rotate my paper and I'm gonna come around. And it's always curving. We don't wanna make them straight. We're gonna make curved lines. So notice how I'm rotating my paper. And then look at this, I'm at the end. I wanna make sure this one curves and touches over here. So I'm gonna make a complete circle around my web. Now, if you do the lines the other way, your web is gonna look more like a flower instead of a spider web. So I'm gonna go to the next one, and I wanna do about 2 finger spaces at least, maybe 3 with your small fingers, because if I put them too close together, my glue is going to pull together and it's gonna make a big mess with my glue instead of those lines that I wanna create. So again, a frowny face, but notice I can put 2 of my fingers in there. You guys probably 3, so big space in here. But again, I'm gonna turn my paper, curved line, like a frowny face, sad face today. And I'm gonna go around my entire paper creating another circle. But notice I always come to the black line. Don't skip it and leave one way up here. So curved line. And again, I turn my paper, big frowny face. And I keep going around my paper, boys and girls. Turn it, frowny face. And again, see how I'm touching those black lines? I'm gonna keep doing this so that I have all my lines on my paper, and I will show you it when I'm finished. All right, boys and girls, you can see that I've finished my spider web. I created circles. Now, and I also made sure that I spread my lines out so that my glue won't be too close together. Notice on this line right here, as I come over here, there's not one that goes over here, and that's because basically it's almost as if my web got cut off in the picture because there wasn't enough room and I didn't want to try to squeeze it in and bring it in down here. That makes it look messy. So we're gonna keep going even, and it would be up here. So you just pretend that it would keep going. So even over here, I don't have it. You can see that I brought my web over here, but it wasn't able to make it to this side. So now the next step is I want to add it to my paper towel. I was not working on this because it's a lot easier to make mistakes and erase it on paper than it is trying to work on a paper towel. So I'm going to lay my paper towel down on top of my piece of paper. Remember, your name is on the back. It should not be on the front of your paper towel. I'm actually going to use my pencil now. I do not want to use Sharpie on my paper towel, and I'm going to carefully trace all those lines I just created using my Sharpie, and that's why I have it on top. You can see it underneath my paper towel. So now I'm tracing all the radial lines that were coming from that center point. I'm going to start with those first. Try to trace it nice and neat. I'm not doing it really dark. If I push down too hard, boys and girls, I will probably rip my paper towels. So I want to make sure that I'm dark enough to see, but not too dark that I'm damaging anything on my paper towel. So again, I'm just continuing my lines here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw those lines that are in between. So now I'm just going to make sure that I come in and that I touch the line and I stay on the lines that I created previously. So go ahead and get all your lines drawn so we can go on to the next step. All right, so I've traced all of my lines onto my paper towel. I want to look at it, make sure I didn't forget a line somewhere. I have this paper still that I was using underneath, and then I have my paper towel. But I'm actually going to grab a third piece, and I'm going to put first my paper that I was drawing on top of. Then this is when I'm going to grab that wax paper, and this is a really important part, boys and girls. We want wax paper, and that is to prevent it from sticking to our paper or sticking to the counter or sticking to our workspace that we are working on. So I'm going to take my wax paper and I'm laying it on top of that other paper that I just created. But then I'm going to lay my paper towel on top of this wax paper. On top of. So I've got 1, 2, 3. This one's on top. And that way, like I said, the wax paper will prevent it from sticking to your table or paper. So we don't want that to happen. So one material I forgot is you are going to be using glue, and that's why I say it will be sticking to the counter if you don't use that wax paper. We're going to use the glue to trace our pencil lines on our paper. So we are going to take it and we're going to squeeze gently. I don't want to squeeze too hard, boys and girls, because then my glue is going to come out in one big mess. So I'm going to start off and I'm actually going to rotate my paper, not my arm, not my body. I'm going to rotate the paper. And so I'm going to trace those lines using the glue. When I'm done with a line, I stop squeezing the glue so that way it doesn't travel across my paper. And you can either trace it, whatever's easiest from you. And I'm going to make sure that I make nice pretty lines going across and connecting. This way, I'm going to do it this way so that way I don't put my hand into it as I'm rotating it. You want to probably keep your hand, notice I have it down here so I can hold my paper towel but not put my hand into it. Sometimes that gets frustrating and we make mistakes like that where we accidentally put our arm into our artwork. We're going to try to hopefully prevent that. So I'm going to continue to trace all my lines. Notice I'm keeping this arm up too, this hand, so that it's not going into my glue or my artwork. You do it however you need to do it, boys and girls, to get your artwork successful. If you need to do it a second time because you made a mistake, then you can try it again so that way you have artwork that you are happy with. I'm going to continue to trace my lines and be back with you to finish the next step. All right, boys and girls, I have finished tracing my web with glue. I want to make sure that I look around and look for anywhere that I might have a gap or a hole, or I did not cover it in glue, but I'm looking at it and it looks like I covered it pretty good. Now, I have wet glue on a paper towel. There's nothing else I can do today with this assignment. So I'm actually gonna leave it right here to dry. If you need to move it out of the way, then I suggest putting like a book underneath, but do not pick it up, because what happens with wet glue, when you pick it up and it's in the air, it's gonna come off and it's going to run. And we don't want our nice, beautiful lines that we just created to run down our paper or make a mess. So I'm gonna leave this right here to dry nice and flat. Don't put it anywhere where it's leaning or up straight. And you're gonna save it for next week, because when we come back, we're gonna continue this lesson. Bye, guys.